evening from the capital city of Kenya, that is Nairobi. Tonight we look into the competence-based curriculum. We are going to look into this system of education that was initiated in Kenya 4 years ago. And tonight we are joined by Mr. Stephen Onyango, who is a trainer and a lecturer. He's also a senior trainer at the Teach for Kenya. And we're also joined by Mr. Mark Vincent, who is a policy and a political analyst. We're also joined by Mr. Festus Ogindo, who is a techpreneur and an educationist. My name is Cornelius Omuse, and I welcome you to join us in this conversation where we're going to review the 4 years that Kenya has tried to implement the competence-based curriculum that has elicited a number of debates among the stakeholders, that is parents, the pupils, and also the government itself. Remember, this conversation is also live on our Facebook page, KAK TV Kenya, and YouTube is also KAK TV Kenya. Keep it here because knowledge or information is power, and that is why Power Brief is here for you. Gentlemen, welcome to our show, and many thanks for finding time to be with us here. Mr. Vincent, it's been a while. Mr. Onyango and Mr. Ogindo, it's your first time to be here. Feel free, and straight away we go into looking into this system of education that has been here, and it's actually continuing. And yesterday we had Professor Magoha talking of 5 million children are studying under this program, and he went further to say that they're happy about it. As a trainer and a person who is working closely with the teachers and also all of us here from our interactions as trainers and people who work with policy, does this statement happy was aimed to achieve by the cabinet secretary, the professor?
Thank you for this opportunity, and if I may start with this program. Yes, it was a good program that was initiated by our government, but somehow it was not fully realized as to how it should be done. So it's a good one, and actually if you go to the United Nations acts or the implementations that they have stated forward, is that after every years we should have a change in our curriculum. We should cope up with the years or the centuries that we as people are getting into. So it was good thing that we were changing from the 844 system to the competency-based curriculum, but we are still here to realize it. There are a lot of challenges that we have stated, because the reason why I'm saying this is that according to the Constitution of Kenya 2010, actually in 2013 there was a legislation that was enacted, and this legislation stated very well that each and every child should have the right to the basic education. And further to that, if you go down to Article 39, then it lists all the obligations that the government must meet in order for us to realize this system. So therefore, I'll say that we rushed this system, and a lot needs to be done.
Thank you so much. Mr. Mark Vincent, on your part, you seem to be having a different opinion from what Mr. Onyango said regarding whether this program was rushed or it was actually done in the right timelines.
I wouldn't say it wasn't rushed, neither was it rushed. But the fundamental aspect of every project, every program is, have you invested enough? Have you invested enough? And when I'm saying about investment, many people will run or rush to monetary aspect. But I'm saying, have we invested enough time to the point that now we can come up and say the kids are happy? Unfortunate or fortunate, it's not the kids who are saying they're happy, it's the professor saying. And I believe if they were given that opportunity as kids, we also listen and hear from them. Let parents all come out and tell us. Let the teachers come and tell us, so that we can have a collective ideology, a collective perspective of these people. And at the end of the day, and then we have to track back when we began. What was the ideal agenda? what were the intended aspects of this program of CBC to be achieved, the far we have come and the far we are going. I think by using such a kind of perimeters and such a kind of a yardstick, then we can come up and say, indeed we are happy. And again, happiness is relative. This is a relative word. Why do we become happy? You are happy because your happenings are happening. The moment your happenings are not happening, then you cease to be happy. So in some areas, because I don't think if the CBC came so that the students who are living in affluent areas are the one to benefit, let us ask ourselves, is the same curriculum implemented in Mandera, in Wajir, in Lodwar? And if you want to tell us the aspect of happiness, then it's relative. I think that is my starting point.
Thank you
and the
so
bone
much.
of contentions is there.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Festus, as a techpreneur, looking into the preparation, they say the entry actually in most instances will determine how sometimes you finish. How do you think this process actually began to make it be where it is tonight?
First, thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight with you. But back to the question, CBC. This is a good project to start with because the framers of this CBC had in mind that they would produce students that are holistic in nature to the society and also ready for the job market. But as we speak today, there are a lot of problems surrounding the CBC project implementation. And we cannot apportion specific blames. We as a society, we are to blame from all the stakeholders. Number one, you are looking to enroll a particular project that requires infrastructure to be in place. Talk of classes, talk of schools. To date, there are students in Kenya, 4 years down the line since the enrollment of CBC, that are still studying under the trees. Let me give you a good example. In Tiati constituency, a school like Hill Park Primary School, they have got 2 teachers. And out of these 2 teachers, one is recognized by TSC, the other one is not recognized. The school itself is CBC compliant up to 5th grade. So you are left wondering, how will this school itself execute the vision put in place by the framers of CBC? Number 2, you get to a point whereby you find the teachers themselves that are supposed to be implementing the CBC are not fully equipped. Some of them are not fully trained. Some of them, the ones that they trained when they were enrolling the project, some of them were from the lower grade class, from class 1, class 2, class 3. And most of these people, based on the reports I've been getting from the experts, were the elderly in these particular schools. Meaning most of them have exited. So there's a serious gap in terms of the numbers available to teach students. Then number 3, you have explosion of population in our schools. You find a class and there are close to 120 students and there's only 1 teacher. Considering how vigorous and rigorous the teaching is under CBC design, these particular teachers are overwhelmed, they are undervalued. Number 2, they are undertrained. Number 4, we also have parents who are also not receptive to the CBC.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ogindo. But now we go into the journey of CBC. It's now 4 years old. As it began, actually, there are a number of celebrations that indeed my son Vincent will be able to understand him or herself at a younger age and then specialize. But as it comes on the way, that's when now the louder voices have begun coming from different quarters. One of it, which the cabinet secretary answered, it was on Tuesday. He said that the government is providing books for CBC. Our contact on the ground, actually contacts on the ground speaks of something else. They're talking of they're buying books by themselves. So we want to get it from the practical aspect of view, from the policy aspect of view, and also from the practical aspect of view from your interactions in these schools. Has the government been providing these books? Because two different information. The ministry is talking of they're providing books, while parents kwa ground wanasema kwamba they're buying books.
Thank you for that question, and actually it's a timely question. Sometimes I wonder from which level or from which stage does the government speak, or after what kind of the research has been done to make sure that whatever is given to the public is true. I've told you that we as an organization that deals with the vulnerable areas in our society, I've actually been going to some of these schools, and you realize that it has even become more expensive than the other one, because the resources, the infrastructure, and all the needed training has not been done. You realize that some of the private schools which actually have invested have almost all the resources that they need, while other schools that are in urban center and primary schools, or even the schools that are in rural areas, still miss this practical aspect. For example, let's take this. You are implementing this project. You don't have enough security for our children. Look at what is happening like Laikipia. Look at what is happening in the northern part of Kenya as a result of drought. What are we doing to make sure that the practical aspect of CBC is realized? So we have a challenge in the infrastructure. We have a challenge in the training, and that's why I was bringing this. In 2018, our own research that was done by KICD and actually was confirmed by our former minister, Amina Mohamed, confirmed that in the implementation of the CBC, there were a lot of challenges. And these challenges varied from lack of training. The teachers were not able to understand the pedagogy of implementing this system. They didn't know on which stage should this happen. And again, all the laid work frameworks were not communicated well to the parents. So it means even if they removed the free primary education or the compulsory basic education, we are still paying indirectly, in that we pay in terms of the resources that government ought to have produced. So we are still behind, and the practical aspect of it has only been achieved only at a smaller percentage.
Thank you, Mr. Onyango. Mr. Vincent, still regarding the books. A few weeks ago, when schools were being opened, there are a lot of lines in bookshops in towns, especially in Nairobi and the outskirts. And the call was that the books are so expensive and you are required to buy a lot of books. But the information that came from the ministry was actually a different information from what the parents were complaining about.
You know, like the aspect of policy, you're saying the main reason why we are bringing in the CBC was for efficient provision of education, and again to reduce wastage. But again, you realize things are different from the angle of speech and from the angle of practicality. Two different things, because I don't think if the government was really there to implement the policy, and I think it's not just about this education, but like our bone of contention as a country has never been the policy, but the implementation of the policy. If you read the policies that we have in this country, if you read even to our own constitution, in everything that the government begins, we always have the great mind, the expert in everything that you do on paper. But when it comes to the point of implementation, where did the rain start beating us? The rain started beating us where the funds, the resources that are properly intended for this policy, for this project, are never ever challenged to do the same. The money always ends in other people's pocket, because if really there was a need, there was a desire to make sure that we have that effective efficiency of having our kids gaining the proper education that we always speak, reducing the wastage of time and resource and every other thing, then I believe the government should have been on forefront to make sure that these resources are everywhere. And I go back to what my colleague has just said. We go back to the aspect of happiness. How can students be happy when, one, there are no infrastructure even in their areas? Some are still sitting under the tree and you're telling me about being happy. Some are still sitting on the stones and you're telling me to be happy. And the people are telling us students are happy, their kids never sat on those stones. They themselves, they never sat on such a stone. So I think it's high time that we stop this game of Tom and Jerry, cat and mouse. We stop. And let us accept as a government, as a country, that yes, CBC is right, but there is a level we have not yet attained. Until we come down as stakeholders, let us listen to the views of teachers, because you cannot rush something and then you desire to have the best result. We don't just need energy in this issue, we need a synergy. We need a synergy from all the key players. We need a synergy. So when you put in the energy, then you realize there's key aspect, the nitty-gritties that you ignore. And again, somebody say the small thing that you ignore today, one day you get up there and you look back and realize those small things really mattered. And I believe it's not about chest thumping. It is not about to show that you can speak and things can be like that. Because at the end of the day, you must be somebody who want to speak with truth and honesty, and accept that yes, we have done this, but on our part, also this still remain. And I think it is high time now the government should call partners, and the key partner should be parents. And tell them, parents, listen here, as a government, we have this amount of money, and we can provide this number of books, and you parents provide this number of books. Instead of going on the media and in the public domain and start proclaiming and professing things that you know they are not being actualized on the ground. And I believe by doing so, the aspect of honesty, accountability and transparency is going to take this program to another level. Rather than living in denial. And I think that's the most undoing part of this thing. We are living in denial. Let us accept there are loopholes. Let us accept that there are lapses that need to be fixed. And if we do so, then I think all of us will embrace this, and we can have a common denominator of saying each one of us has a role, has a part to play in this, and make it a success.
All right, thank you, Mr. Vincent. Now, on training and capacity building, Mr. Ogindo, the reason as to why CBC was brought on board was actually to align the economy and the changing times with the future of this country. Now, the Minister of Education, together with other stakeholders, have been bringing out a report that there's no need for someone who has been trained for 4 years as a teacher to go for another 4 years to learn on how CBC can be implemented. It gave a report that they have been trained short courses, these short courses on how you can handle these children and all that. Mr. Onyango will be telling us whether it intermarries properly with someone who went to school during the previous years, and if they're taken right now to take these students through the current system. With the technological advancement, the technology and so many things that are happening, evolution every now and then, do you think the teachers who are trained in the former system can easily go through a short course and be able to offer the best in training the CBC program?
Yes and no. To be precise, number one, for the yes, it is possible for them if they are equipped. You talked of technological advancement. You look at countries like Singapore and China. They implemented CBC, and one of the key things that actually helped them was the technological infrastructure in place that enabled even the students to be able to follow up with teachers' assignments and all that at home and both at school. They were able to use the technology to complement the gap that was being left by the teachers who were not trained at the time. But here in Kenya, the law comes in place because we don't have the technology in place. Some of our schools, to start with, don't even have electricity. They don't even have, I hear yesterday, recently, Prof. Magoa is saying, let them use projectors. Where will these teachers find the projectors? Well, some schools don't even have seats for the kids. They don't even have the chalkboard. They don't even have the chalk. Where will they get the technology to help them adapt? So here in Kenya, we are set to fail. The CBC is set to fail in as far as it's being handled right now, because they're being underfunded. The moment they're underfunded, even the teachers themselves, the training they're going through will going to be inadequate, because the facilitators or the teachers who are teaching the teachers, they also need to be remunerated. But we keep on crying because there are people set aside in within these ministries that are making sure that specific money set aside for specific projects are taken to private pockets. And that is where now we are calling upon the Ministry of Education together with the KLB to tell us this 1.9 billion that Prof. Magoa said has been set aside for book printing. Where is the money? And if the money has been spent, where are the books? Because the students themselves are crying. Teachers are also crying that up there. The training they're going through, some of them are not fully equipped to give them the tools they need to transform the people they're supposed to be teaching. Because it is ironical such that you find teachers who have not fully conceptualized the CBC in them, and you expect them to deliver the same to students. It is a game set to doom. Yes.
Thank you.
And I think another thing that is just cropping out. Really, we are saying the main reason, again, another reason behind CBC is to harmonize the curricula in tandem, regionally and globally. You're talking about global trends when regionally, even not talk about regionally, talk about locally. You haven't achieved anything.
You have not.
You haven't achieved anything. And we are talking about projectors. Yet, we have a program with us that never worked. The laptops. What made the laptop to fail? Because you cannot harmonize something that you have not created a foundation for. And one of the foundation, you're telling Tia to look for projectors. This projector, these are not their kids. This is a responsibility of the government. And each reasonable government takes care of its own people. You cannot run away from your responsibility and you want teachers, mere teachers, who are being paid even peanuts to take care of this. This is dishonest. This is uncalled for. And this is living in denial.
Thank you so much. Now, this goes back to Mr. Onyango when it comes to what Festus has spoken about, and also what Mr. Vincent has spoken about accountability and coming out to say that this is working and this is not working. You see now in this case here, the doctors here, or the people who are operating on this program, it is you, the teachers, like your organization, and also whatever that you're doing. When the cabinet secretary talked over the projectors, that is one. Two, when they talked of 1.9 billion set aside for books, and then you saw parents lining up and down, and you didn't have books. Have there been any steps that you have taken as stakeholders in the education sector to say that this is not working, and then something is done?
Okay, thank you so much for that. I'm attempted to say that we are in a marriage that is still existing, though we've been divorced long time ago. You're only told that these are your children, no? Take care of them, but I'll not be supporting you. So that's the state that we are in. Or rather, if you use in a state of whereby we have a sick person who needs to be bisected to remove the actual problem. This is a state that we want to run this program, we want it to be successful, yet we don't have the ingredients or the scissors or the drugs or the right doctors to use it. We may have the doctors to do it, but you've not facilitated the doctors to bisect it and do it well. Number one, if you want a patient to be okay, then you must put the doctor into his or her right senses. Provide him with everything. So in this CBC, we must go back to the basics. First, let us lay down the basics for it. Then, it will be easier for the other people to eat. So, by laying the basics, means you must invite all the stakeholders. Invite the unions, be it Kupet, be it NAT, be it WASU. Call them together and let's say, this is the elephant in the room. Don't forget to call the parents because they're the ones supplying us with the clients. So we need to go back to the basics, do our basic needs and everything that's required. Make sure that whatever is implemented in Nairobi, there's an alternative for it in Baringo, Turkana, Moyale, or even in Western Kenya. Make sure that there's a level ground for everyone. So we need leaders who can implement this. We don't need managers. We need leaders. Leaders can hire managers, okay, to do it. But let's have the right leaders. So that's why I go back to we ourselves as the electorate. We must start with ourselves. Let us sit down and think about those people who we are electing to be in charge of our resources. That's where the problem is.
Thank you very much. We go for a quick commercial break. When we return, we'll be looking way forward and what can be done in order to address the pressing issues in the competence-based curriculum system of education that has elicited a number of debates across the country. Keep it here on CAC TV.
Pre-filled Holy Communion cup is the new normal that gives churches the versatility to serve their own style of Holy Communion. Our pre-filled Holy Communion elements are sealed into a convenient single-serving container ready to use. It's easy to use and distribute while creating a safe environment with the social distancing need. We offer branded cups for your church and also offer the element for those who need it for the online service. Pre-filled communion elements provides you with a safe and hygienic way to celebrate communion. The Holy Communion elements is a first single portion serving of altar wine and wafer, red grape juice and wafer, juice and wafer. Place your order today. It is approved and highly recommended by all. Order now via WhatsApp or call us on 07999 88371 or visit our website www.holycommunionelements.com. Write us on email at communionelements@gmail.com. Holy Communion, experience the difference. 1 Corinthians 11:24-25.
Are you looking to grow a business? CAC TV offers you a variety of advertising opportunities to suit your budget. Advertise with us today and reach your potential customers countrywide. For more information, email us on sales@cactv.org or call 0794 588 054.
Are you looking for a school, a place where you can nurture your talent?
Cause Nimpa
iko sawa,
Nimpa
iko sawa.
nasoma mziki pia na film. kuna theater na pia graphic design, kuna DJ na hata animation. Karibu Nimpa ugeuze superstar. Nimpa iko sawa. Nimpa iko sawa. Greatness comes right after Nimpa. Nimpa iko sawa.
Experience Christian television like never before.
What are we called to do to transform the world, to make it more Christ-like, and ultimately to Christianize?
We are Christian professionals placed by God in our different spheres.
CAC TV brings you news.
Ulimwengu unabadilika kwa kasi na kila dakika ya siku kuna jambo unalopaswa kujua.
Economic.
Ni mmoja tu wa wanabiashara ambao tumezungumza nao mtazamaji.
Health.
The egg from Kienyeji chicken is very good and people know that.
Be rest assured that health is wealth.
Faith, as well as national issues programs to nourish your heart, mind and soul.
We can bring the change that we desire in our country.
We look into political and governance matters and current affairs matters with a third eye.
We are called to multiply disciples. So there has to be disciple makers, and there has to be people that are willing to be those disciples.
CAC TV brings it all to you.
God bless you.
Without health, life is not life. As human beings, we need complete mental, physical, and social well-being, not just the absence of disease. Regardless of what disease, condition, health system status, or information gap, we are here not just to convey or state, but to explain and break it down in the most basic way, for your health is key and it matters. Every Monday from 7:30 p.m., I will help you find out how to look after your health, live healthier for longer, and be in total control of your health.
If we were to express our faith in the workplace, even in our offices, I don't think we'd be dealing with the issues that our country is dealing right now.
In every situation, there's a silver lining.
If I'm a Christian professional, will I be engaged in corruption or in tribalism or some of these other national vices we have in the workplace?
How do we get back to the original design as God intended it to be?
We inspire.
The cross unites, these other traditions divide.
The God of hope fills us with joy and peace so that we overflow with hope.
Encourage resilience.
When you see like, what? It's like when an accident is coming to happen and you're seeing yourself dead. You get to a point where you say, no, but God is there. And you know, He puts a stop.
And instill hope that anchors the soul.
We know that God intends that we have life and have it in abundance.
Don't miss Rays of Hope Mondays at 8 p.m. only on CAC TV.
The great people on earth today are the people who pray. Not those who talk about prayer or those who explain about prayer, but those who take time and pray.
God answers prayers. Why? Because He hears. His ear is not deaf, so He hears our prayers.
Men and women who go before God, we should be men and women of godly standards. Sure. So we abide, so that we keep tapping from the source.
But as we pray, it is important to tell God that your will be done in this prayer that I'm praying, or about this prayer item that I'm praying about. Not as I will, yes, this is my will, but let your will be done.
In these changing times and seasons of uncertainty, whom do you look up to?
God keeps His part. Calm rain, calm sunshine. God is still committed.
From one generation to another, and it's not like shifting shadows that he will change. But
Join Reverend Elizabeth Kimani and Henry Kyra every Wednesday from 8 to 9 p.m. live on CAC TV for Call Unto Me.
2021, he's still the same God and he has not changed.
Are you looking for affordable land to begin your investment journey? PCA Housing Cooperative Society Limited brings you Baraka Gardens. Baraka Gardens prime plots are located in Juja, one of Nairobi's most sought after towns for investments. The plots are located 1 kilometer from the upcoming Great Eastern Bypass and only a few meters from Juja Farm Ardhi Shopping Center. We are offering a 40 by 80 acre plot at 560,000 Kenya shillings for members and 600,000 Kenya shillings for non-members. Book yourself a plot today with a deposit of 200,000 Kenya shillings. The installments are 60,000 Kenya shillings for members and 67,000 Kenya shillings for non-members, payable within 6 months. Baraka Gardens is a ready-to-build investment with electricity and water readily available. Get in touch with us today to become part of the bustling Juja neighborhood. We have other projects in Juja Farm and Kangudo Road. Our offices are located at Muho Avenue, South C, Nairobi. For more information, contact us on 0708 145 222.
Welcome back. We do apologize sincerely for that, having taken a long time we talked to have a short break, but we've taken longer than expected. But tonight we are looking into the competence-based curriculum system of education that was actually established 4 years ago, but there are a lot of complaints from different quarters, and tonight on Power Brief we are trying to find a level ground on where each and every stakeholder can begin and be able to set the country on the right path regarding the matters of education. Gentlemen, before we went for a break, there is something we were looking at, and we looked at the training capacity and all those things that are required to see that everything runs in the right way. But the complaints have been concentrating. One is the nature and the volume of homework that the pupils have been receiving. Today in the morning I read a particular piece written by one of the lecturers, he's a colleague in the institution that you teach. He was talking of these developed countries that parents work hand in hand with their children when it comes to homework. And this person was finding it so strange in Kenya that when children are asked to work hand in hand with their children on homework, there is that complaint. Is it that parents are a bit trying to detach themselves from their children, or it is something that this person was also trying to overreact?
No, there's no overreaction at all. Our parents have sort of reluctance to accommodate the change brought by the CBC. Number one, you find the current CBC is more intensive, more engaging. The students, if you look at the reports given by the teachers of today, they put it in details, how and when and how and what tools to use and all that. When these kids go back at home, we find parents already overburdened by the current economy. You find parents that are probably tired. You find parents that are not even aware of what the assignment is all about. So coupled with the challenges they're facing from the intellectual point of view, plus the economic hardships they're going through, plus the amount of work they're supposed to help their kids to go through, because this CBC requires parents to be more involved, more engaged, but we have had situations of reluctance. Our parents are reluctant to chip in and help the teachers to complement the gap that is being brought about by the inadequacy of a number of teachers. So I still urge our parents out there, let's love our kids. Let's separate spare some time within our schedules to help the students, because they want them to be the future of tomorrow and of today. So it is for our parents to say enough is enough. Let us help our kids.
Thank you. Mr. Vincent, a few days ago we had some information in one of the international media outlets that students from some of the countries in the West were actually giving students from Kenya or former students to perform their tasks, and they were doing it very well. And some of the people who are looking at why they're doing very well is because of the system that Kenyans have gone through, the education system where you learn Kiswahili, you learn social studies, you learn science, you learn everything and you become all-round. And there was a person who was saying that there is a big danger, in fact, on denying Vincent at the age of 15 years not to do mathematics, because this person is going to concentrate on sports science, because actually one of the senior member of in the Ministry of Education was saying you don't need mathematics to be a musician. So it's like they're encouraging this person to leave mathematics at a younger age. And remember, there are calculations outside here. You'll meet Mr. Techpreneur here. You want to do a particular thing, and then because you left mathematics in class 2, then he works on you thoroughly, then it continues to bring a problem. Do you think this thing needed some sort of blending?
Yeah, blending begins from what my colleague was saying. And I believe on what he has just shared, I want to tweak it a little bit. It's not about bringing parents into accountability. It's not that parents have turned down their responsibility. Trust you me, the same way I was taught ABCDE, you know, the same way these kids are being taught ABCD. So even me as a parent, if you give me a kid, the way I used to pronounce IO is not the same way they're pronouncing now. So even me as a parent, you as a parent, you find yourself in a quagmire state. You're in a limbo. The pronunciation of words of is different. So if I walk hand in hand with my kid, then I will mislead this kid. Whatever I will tell him in the house is not the same thing this kid will be told when he's in school or he's in school. So it begs a question: should also parents be taken through the CBC? If you want parents to walk hand in hand with their children, also we should have an opportunity for parents to be taught about CBC, because you cannot sit with their kid, you cannot assist them with their homework when you yourself you are misinformed. You're going to do something different. Not that, because we are in a limbo, in a quagmire, and this is the reality. We should not live in a denial. We should not live in denial, because right now, the way you say, the burden is there, but again, even previous the burden was there, but realize it's like the system our parents went through and what we went through, it was correlated, so they were able even to work with us and teach us something. But now, you as a parent, ask somebody who was a kid now in school, they cannot sit down and teach him, because it's like there's the disorientation.
Thank you.
Now we talk about the one now you have asked about is it good for us to do everything? You realize if you walk around and you find a typical Kenyan out there abroad, they are smart. Whatever counts as a challenge to most of the people out there, then if you meet a Kenyan, it's like they have been thrown in an ocean, because from onset you have been taught how to survive. You have been taught how to do it hard for you to make it. And I believe it doesn't mean that we should just bury our heads in the sand and ignore this. We need to have the basic foundation of where we are incorporating everything that we want, and then at a certain point in time, now we can put everything aside, and then people should concentrate, because I think the foundation is very key, because in life that we are in, we need all these subjects at least to incorporate us and also sharpen our mind. But unfortunately, if we want to go that way, that we want to ignore everything and focus on something, that's why we are going to have a nation that people have sharp nails, but not sharp brains.
Thank you so much. Mwalimu, looking on what Mr. Vincent and Mr. Ogindo have spoken about in regard to the parent participation in the pupil Because I heard at some point someone was talking of Abu Charge, something different from what we did actually. And he has raised something regarding, is it time that also parents are taken full time on CBC, or how is it going to work it out that your child comes home, they bring to you something that you do not understand, and therefore when the child goes back to school tomorrow, probably teachers may start complaining that parents are not participating in day-to-day development of their children.
The question is nice. The reason I'm saying it's nice, we are used to a situation whereby the parent of today, we as the citizen of the nation, we don't feel like we are part of it. Just yesterday you've heard that the fuel prices have gone high. What does it translate to a parent? That you work more. So you are working during the day, and then here is your kid. Not unless government says that you as a parent, you're also going to pay your salary for teaching or for taking part of what we should be providing. Some parents even come back in the house when their children are already asleep because they're hiding. They know very well that they haven't gotten anything during the day. They have nothing to eat. So they come back at night when the children are already asleep, although some are notorious. You might find some are still waiting for you, asking you, what have you brought for us? So we are in that situation. And I hope our president is listening to this, that the citizen of the nation, especially the parents, they're already burdened. Let's find a middle ground, provide the right infrastructure. And that's why I insist, let's go back to the basics. And then later, when things have taken over, then we should now be handed over part of the responsibility. Because the reason why I'm saying is this. If you are a minister and you are saying this train has already left the station, what do you mean? That others will still remain behind while those who are in abundance of the resources will take on with the system. So you are leaving behind. You are creating a boundary between the house and have-not. So we are in that category whereby the government is just standing. She is just standing herself that this thing should go on, while the train itself has no fuel. It has no manpower to do it. So we are straining as the citizens. So let's sort out ourselves first, and then we proceed with the next.
Now, thank you. As we do our final submissions, gentlemen, tonight, when the trumpet, especially from parents and a number of stakeholders, had been blown so loud, and yesterday again, the cabinet secretary, that is Professor Magoha, said that yes, we have heard what Vincent is trying to talk about, what Ogindo is trying to talk about, what Ms. Onyango is also trying to raise. But we can only do this at the 5th year of this program, which is next year, to review, because according to the schedule, by the year 2023, then the 844 system should have been first off. So they're talking of, we will review it in 2022. But even when reviewing it, he didn't give a promise that when we find out that this train actually can no longer move, we will try maybe to stop it there and allow maybe the passengers to alight and use maybe boda or something else. So we want to see to it that suppose this thing proves not to be working, of which it's coming out that it's not working. Do we revert slowly to the 844 as the infrastructure and other preparations are made, or the train continues to go with a few that will make it to the promised land? Beginning from you as you make your final submissions.
To go to this point, it is laughable because should we accept that we are reverting back to 844, we'll be accepting defeat that CBC cannot work in Kenya. But it is possible to work. This term, these politicians use day and night that inawezekana. This thing has got better fruits than the 844 system. But the implementation, the preparedness needed, these are the things we are lacking as a country. And whether we want to accept it or not, it is good for us to accept the truth. It is heading to fail. It is inevitable. We are just waiting for when. Because if things proceed the way they are, we cannot talk about reverting back. We are talking about total failure in education system. But we need to salvage it in time. First and foremost is taking responsible departments into accountability. They need to account for what they have been doing for the last 4 years, because they cannot lie to us today that they will review this thing next year. And in 2023, they are supposed to be having double intake. We have the last cohort of the 844 system joining the CBC, and the first CBC guys are joining what we call now class 9, which is supposed to be Form 1. And we don't have enough infrastructure. Teachers are still having inadequate training, ineffective training. They're also less in numbers. We don't have enough schools and classes, so to speak. And still they're talking of reviewing next year. And this has present challenges bedeviling our people. And if we want to salvage the education system in Kenya as a whole, then we need to start acting now. There's no tomorrow. Because it will fail and it will shame Kenya as a country. But we still have an avenue to transform the CBC, make it work, simply by being responsible, being diligent, and being honest to Kenyans.
So it gets transformed as the train is moving?
Yes. There are going to be challenges. We can't run away from them. We are learning on the go because we were not prepared enough before it was launched. So right now, we have to learn on the go. But my advice, as I conclude, my advice to the public is, we have yearned for change for a long time, and in different sectors. But in the education system, it's upon the parents, it's upon the stakeholders to make sure that whichever responsibility, as a CS, he needs to be able to fund the project fully. Let him put pressure on the government. Allocate more funds to ensure that we have infrastructure in place. Number 2, teachers ought to be trained, and parents also need to be receptive. We don't need to criticize all the time. Let us do a critique, but not to criticize. Because when we criticize, we're talking about all things are negative. But when we can critique a problem, we can be able to find the positive aspects of CBC and the negative aspect of CBC. And when we all together join efforts to make sure that we transform it, then we can realize the CBC.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ogindo. Mr. Mark Vivian Vincent, still on the same thing, though with another bit of approach. Omboko Milemba, the corporate head, the other day talked of, as we move along with the CBC, at some point, we are going to see to it that we face off the issue of students going, pupils and even students, boarding schools issue to be faced off, so that you come from your own house, go to school, and go back home.
That to me is laughable.
And we want to see to it. He said it's much more possible just as the CBC.
No, it's very laughable.
As you make your final
submissions.
submissions.
It's very laughable to me. And we are living in denial. And that is the worst thing to do. You can never do away with boarding school. I tell you. Secondly, you realize I've never seen a wise man testing the depth of a river with both feet. That is madness. And I believe we are coming to a point whereby we have to be very sober. We have to have the sobriety, the confidence, and I believe Mswahili anasema punda afe lakini mzigo ufike. And we are getting to a point whereby we have to accept that there is no history, there is no victory without history. Every victory you see today, you go back, you will see history where we lost life, where we lost resources, but at the end of the day, we are celebrating the victory. Many of us want to celebrate the glory of today, but we forget behind every glory there is a story. So let us consider on the story. And we know through this story, the journey that we are going to have the glory. Let us not wait until we wallow in the glory and then we forget about the story. So we should brace ourselves and accept that the journey is not that easy. The challenges are going to be there. Men are going to fall on the way. But the main thing, if we have the resilience, if we have heart of purpose, passion put to use, that we want to achieve the CBC, we shall. And I believe this is the point now I always want to tell, and I tell Kenyans, I tell the government, no matter how big a tree is, it will not be called a forest. This big tree needs small trees around to be called a forest. So the government should just bring in stakeholders and be honest to critique, be honest to what we can improve, and stop living in denial. Last but not least, and this I'm saying in Swahili, we come to a point where I always say, usiote jua ukadhani unajua, bukua vitabu upate kujua, maana kila kuchao hucha na kucha zake. As we go on, we must understand the glory of yesterday, or the miracle of yesterday, may not be suffice as today. We must be ready to serve a fresh miracle, a fresh anointing for us to live for today. And this only happen when we are more open to change, than we want to justify our own means, than we want to make it look like we are better than others. And the stakeholder, the corporate, the teachers, the parent, the government, we should stop this politics of CBC and having this game, or having this battle is us versus them. Us versus them. We will not achieve anything. Let us get away from this us versus them. I'm the minister, I'm the CS, I'm so and so, I'm the chairman. Let us run away from this. Let us know this thing is there for us, for our children, and posterity will either judge us harshly or fairly.
Thank you very much. Mr. Onyango, as you make your final submission, where are the crossroads? Where do we head to from here?
Thank you. As I conclude, I'll say that we as the people of Kenya must take responsibility, and we must make our government responsible. So it should start from us. Each and everyone in Kenya must reclaim his or her space. In the capacity as Onyango, I'm advocating that all our children, or in line with the learning or education system in Kenya, let's look at the vision of 2030. Are we achieving it? The vision for Africa 2050, are we achieving it? Are we there with the sustainable goals? Are we there with the global patterns that have changed up to now? And that's why I'm saying we in Teach for Kenya, and actually I'll not forget to mention our CEO, Yukabeth Kidenda. She has been very passionate in ensuring that the children that are in vulnerable areas are catered for. And as organization, I can say in our part, we've picked the graduate schools, the graduate students who have performed well from the various universities, and then we post them. Imagine a graduate who has a degree being posted in primary schools to go there and teach. We are leading by example, and that's what we want other people to do it. So we are requesting the government to seek for partners like Teach for Kenya, other organizations, and I've told you already, we are even in talks with KUPPET to make sure that our teachers are trained, and we are doing this at our own capacity. So these are the programs that the government should take charge and assist or fund in order to reach the other people. So we need each other. The government needs its people. And we normally say the government that eats its people is a government that is bound to fail. Okay? So let us not fail. Listen to us, the government, and we are the government. By definition, people are the government because we put you there. Make sure that we do the right thing because Kenya is a rich nation.
Thank you.
All the resources is enough for us.
That is Mr. Festus Ogindo, Mr. Mark Vivian Vincent, and also Mr. Stephen Onyango. Tonight, they have enabled us to look into the CBC curriculum of education, and we've been able to identify some of the hitches, technical hitches, some of the structural challenges that are facing this system of education. They've made their submissions, and we hope that moving forward, a number of things will be put into consideration in order to ensure that as a country, we stabilize not only the political system or the economic, but the education, which is the basis and the foundation. Always our national mantra, that is peace, love and unity, will always prevail. We appreciate your overwhelming responses on our social media platform and your grievances and some of the feedback that we have received here. For me, Cornelius Omusi, and all those who made this production a success, till next Thursday, God willing, I wish you a very good night.